Now, this is my favorite part of the show, only because Roger always manages to surprise me with a selection of marketing tech apps and gadgets. Every week, we choose one or two little solutions out there, either that we use or we've just discovered, and see whether or not this could be of help to you as well. So, Roger, what have you got for me this week?
Pascal, this week I'm looking at podcast apps, which is really apt, I guess, given that this show goes out as a video and as an audio podcast. But what prompted me to include podcast apps this week is the fact that iOS 14 hit the streets this last week. And of course, like everybody, I updated my iPad, I updated my iPhone. And then when I went in to listen to my podcast and check that Two Geeks was all right, lo and behold, they've changed the podcast app within the Apple infrastructure. And I couldn't find how to do some of the things that I've been doing on their podcasting app for years and years and years. And I got quite cross with it. And it's why did they change the position of the buttons or make you swipe a different way? I can't find my way into my own library now. So it prompted me to go back into the App Store and download a few podcasting apps that I've used in the past. Now, I've used Stitcher before, which is okay, but one that I have used from time to time, and I've got it back on my phone, and I want to call it out, is called Pocket Casts. Now, what I like about Pocket Casts is it's got a few things in it which are a little bit gimmicky, but they're quite fun. One of the things that Pocket Casts does is if you're listening to a podcast, you know how, I don't know whether you're like me, but when I listen to a podcast, I usually put it on 1.5 times speed, so it's a little bit faster, so I can get through more content quicker. And now you can do that on Pocket Cast, but what Pocket Cast also does is it sort of scans ahead, and if it comes across any silences in the podcast, so for example, say an interviewer asks a question and then there's a 5-second pause before the person answers the question, Pocket Cast just cuts it out, so it reduces those little gaps. Now, it's a bit of a gimmicky thing, but it just makes it a bit of a quicker experience, and I really quite like that. What it also does a lot better than Apple is it gives you suggestions of other podcasts that you should listen to based upon what is on your favourites list. Now, Apple does this and other podcasting apps do this, but sometimes they just get it completely wrong. I'm a marketing guy, so I tend to listen to marketing podcasts or film podcasts, bit of comedy. I don't want to listen to a gardening podcast, so that should never come up as a example for me to listen to. So I just love those little quirky things that Pocket Casts has. But then I thought, do you know what? For me now, I think the ultimate podcast listening device has got to be Spotify. Now, you can get Two Geeks and a Marketing Podcast on Spotify, which is fantastic. But and Spotify does exactly what Pocket Cast does, and it gives you suggestions, and a lot of the suggestions, again, better than the Apple algorithm at pointing me to podcasts that I might like, and I've mentioned a few of them on the show in the past few weeks. But sometimes if I'm going on a journey in the car, and a few weeks back I drove down to Newcastle to see you and Richard, so that takes me about an hour and a half. I like to queue up segments of podcasts and episodes. Apple's podcast app only allows you to queue up one after the one you're listening to. Now, if that's a 15-minute podcast, it's no good if you're on an hour and a half journey, and you definitely don't want to be messing around with your phone in the car. Spotify, and Pocket Casts as well, by the way, allows you to queue up as many episodes as you want. But of course, the genius thing, and this honestly, Pascal, this blows me away that I hadn't realised this in the past, but because Spotify is effectively a music app, I can actually queue up a piece of music in between each episode. So I'm driving and I get the best of both worlds. So I'll listen to episode 1 of a podcast, Marcus Sheridan's podcast, then a Genesis track, then episode 2 of Two Geeks and a Marketing Podcast, or Sarah Archer's Speakers Club, and then some Jethro Tull or some Marillion. And that's so bleedingly obvious that you can do that. But for me, I just hadn't made that connection. So now when I'm driving along, I can truly come up with a playlist which encompasses music and podcasting. And that to me is just fabulous.
That's brilliant. So you're essentially organizing your own radio show for yourself.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Is that using the Spotify Premium, I take it, or the free version?
I do actually have Spotify Premium, but you can do it with the free version. You just have to put up with some adverts in between each track.
I use Spotify not very regularly, so I've got the free version. I don't find the adverts actually that kind of intrusive for some reason. Maybe because they are audio-based as well. But I didn't know about Pocket Casts, so yeah, once again, you've surprised me thanks very much for that. Roger, I want to continue my little journey of discovery about all things Google, if you don't mind. Now, very recently, but I know that you will not realize that's the case, a couple of new Google apps were introduced to your Google account freely. So I want to talk to you about Google Collections and Google Jamboard. So to begin with, are you aware of Google Collections?
I haven't heard of either of them, Pascal.
I know. So, please Google, and all the others for that matter, when you invent something, can you please tell us, so we can get excited? So if it wasn't for me being just a bit too curious and obsessive about things like this, I wouldn't know about it. So Google Collections is essentially a bookmarking feature that allows you to save pages, save images, and save locations from Google Maps into folders called collections. Those folders that can then be shared with others who can then add to the collection. So it is a curation tool. You know how fond I am of content curation. But sometimes, as part of this show or for the work that I do, I come across an article, but I'm traveling maybe, or I'm doing something else, and I want to save it. And what I tend to do at the moment, Roger, I email them to myself. Yeah. Which is not a good idea because my inbox, frankly, should be something else. And if I remember, I put it on Flipboard, but then if I put it on Flipboard, it's not easily shareable. So Google Collection is very easy. It tends to be a little easier to access and use on mobile phone. And you'll see now when you go on a page or when you search on Google or when you go on Google Maps, you're going to see the little bookmark symbol. It's like a little drop-down banner or flag, that symbol with a kind of two pointy ends on it. And if you tap on it, it will ask you, where you want to save that page, that image, and that place. So if you are, like me, always consuming content, want to save the article to be used or curated again, Google Collections could be a nice addition. And of course, it fits within the Google ecosystem. Now, Google Jamboard. Yes, it appeared a few months ago now on everybody's Google account, but no message from Google. So there's two versions of the Google Jamboard. Jam as in jamming music-wise, as opposed to the preserves you can consume. And it's the idea of note-taking during a discussion with others. So they have a physical Jamboard. Think of it as an interactive plasma screen where you can use that to jot down notes, have Google meetings. You can also access Google Drives. It's all about accessing the different Google apps. But what is nice about Google Jamboard, imagine like a whiteboard, and you can add sticky post-it notes that you write on. So if you were to have a Zoom meeting, for argument's sake, with a team, and there's always somebody that has to volunteer to take notes, which is, I think, very unfair. So the idea being that once you have the Zoom meeting, you can have a second browser open and give you access to the board where literally you jot down your ideas, your suggestions, or your comment in little sticky notes. They can have different colors. You can change the font. You can put your initials against it and so on. And when it's finished, you can download the Jamboard as a PDF. And then the team has all the notes and all the ideas from the conversation. So for argument's sake, if you and I were to plan, the next few seasons of Two Geeks and Marketing podcast, we could go online, jot down all the ideas for film marketing, all the different tech for marketing tech and apps. And then we have a document that we can use, for ourselves. And of course, because it's part of the Google ecosystem, it can be saved on Drive and you can get people to join you remotely. So Google Collections and Google Jamboards, they've been offered to you freely by Google. You will see the icons on your Google account, but of course, no one knows about it.
Well, I do now, Pascal, so thank you for that. In this section of the show, Pascal and I pick a couple of apps or platforms that have caught our attention over the last week. And it could be an iPhone app or an Android app. It could be something that you can use on a PC or a Mac. So, Pascal, tell me about your tech for this week.
So this week, you know that we explored Google and Google products for a few weeks. And I hope you don't mind, I'm going to stick within the Google ecosystem. I'm going to go for Google Chrome extensions. So the little widgets and apps you can add on your browser. The recommendation is not to have too many. It's going to slow down your machine. But by accident, because I was looking for something else altogether, I came across something called Podcastle, as in pod for podcast and castle as in the Edinburgh Castle. This is a Google Chrome extension that can read out to you web pages and emails and anything that is text-based. So you will download the free Google Chrome extension, Podcastle. You will activate it when you've opened a web page, and then if you're busy doing something else, such as reading email, whatever, it will read out to you the article from your favorite website, Roger, or it will read out the emails to you. And I have to tell you, it's really quite impressive. Now, the voice is very, very robotic. It reminds me of the early years of sat-nav navigation. But if you're busy and you really want to try on multitasking, it is actually quite something. I'm assuming they've got aspiration to move into transcription very soon and other things, but that was the first one.
Excellent. I quite like the sound of that. I sometimes get a bit freaked out by these roboty type voices, but as long as it's not too Dalek-y or too Terminator-y, then I'm quite happy with it.
So very quickly, the second one is one that we mentioned in passing in a previous episode, a Google Chrome extension called Soapbox by Wistia. And it's been mentioned, but I'm just so impressed with it. It will record your webcam and your screen at the same time, and then you can edit afterwards. So let's say you get a phone call from a customer, Roger, or an email asking you how to do something. And frankly, the thought of writing a lengthy email is really not what you have in mind. Then what you can do is literally open your screen, go on the app that you want to demonstrate, potentially Canva or another. You can do a show and tell, so you can kind of move around the Canva webpage. You can talk away through your webcam, and then once it's finished, you can go back and edit and change the view. So you can go full screen, just you, Roger, talking to say hi to the customer. Then you move into full screen of Canva. Then you can move split screen. So it could be half of the screen is you, half of the screen is Canva, and you can keep changing almost, by simply pressing the space bar. Once you're happy with the results, you can just send a copy to your customer.
Fantastic. We're really, really finding some great tech here. I really like all of this stuff. And, again, Google is a treasure trove of apps and extensions, isn't it? So thank you once again for bringing these to my attention. Shall I hit you with mine? Okay. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we gave a shout out to a lady called Jan Ambrose, and she was a lady who did a very short video on LinkedIn about how to calm yourself down and to breathe properly. Now, funnily enough, Pascal, since that shout out, I've actually been asked by a client to do a workshop on calming yourself down under stressful situations. And this is as a result of the fact that, as you know, I do a sideline as a fitness instructor, and therefore it was actually somebody in one of my body combat classes who said, could you do this for us? Now, I do teach meditation and calmness as part of my yoga, so I said yes. But I therefore did a little bit of research about breathing and relaxation to help me put together that workshop. And I came across the Apple Breathe app. Now, again, you think, why on earth would somebody need an app to help them breathe? I mean, we all breathe automatically, don't we? We don't even think about it. But the fact is, and this is what I'll be saying in the session, a lot of us don't breathe properly. We breathe very, very quick, and we actually, a lot of us breathe from the very top of the chest, when in fact the lungs go quite a way down, and we should be breathing through the whole of the volume of the lungs. And what the Apple Breathe app does is it teaches you how to do that. And if you can breathe slower, then it's better and more beneficial for your body. And ideally, if you actually breathe out for longer than you breathe in, and believe it or not, the Apple Breathe app can create sort of almost like you breathe with it. Can you believe that? You actually breathe with it. So it'll say inhale and it counts to say 5, and then exhale and it say counts to 7. So it sounds a bit bizarre, doesn't it? But actually, it's so good at making us breathe properly. And seriously, that is one of the only things you need to do to relieve stress. This sort of sent me off down a rabbit hole. What I've then found is, do you ever use one of these white noise type apps to help you sleep at night?
I've tried them, and they didn't quite work with me. They kept me awake because I enjoyed the sound too much.
Yeah, there is that. There is that. I mean, pure white noise is that sort of hissing sound that you sometimes get when you sort of looking for a radio station, and in between radio stations, it's just that sort of buzzing, fizzing noise that you hear. That's true white noise. But a lot of these white noise apps, as you know, they have rainforest sounds, or it could be waves lapping on the shore or waves crashing on the shore, sometimes thunderstorms in the background and things like that. And I've used all sorts of these apps over the years, and like you, sometimes I sit and listen to them and don't go to sleep. Other times they work. But I came across a really nice article which effectively summarizes the best of these white noise apps. And because I'm feeling like I'm in a wellness mood today, the top one, which I was quite surprised about, is actually one that I've used the most, and it is called My Noise. And again, you can have that pure radio fizzy sound, or you can choose from rainforests, oceans, Tibetan choir, temple bells, whatever it might be. So again, there'll be a link in the show notes, so go and have a look and try some of these apps out and try breathing properly, and it's an amazing way to relieve the stress.
Now, I always look forward to this segment. Once again, I will get surprised by Roger with one of these gems in terms of marketing, tech and apps. What have you got this week, Roger?
All right, so Pascal, this is actually a couple of apps that I've revisited, almost by accident, I have to say. Now, we have mentioned on the show before Canva and alternatives to Canva. Now, for people who don't know, Canva is a platform where you can create graphics. You can create things for Instagram, you can create banners for YouTube channels, you can create pictures and banners for all the social media networks. And Canva is really rich in its flexibility and its functionality, but it's not very practical on the iPhone because there's so much in Canva that, you know, there's just so many options, and it can get quite fiddly. And sometimes I quite like to add words to photographs. It could just be like an inspirational sentence or a descriptive sentence like this. And I used to use an app called WordSwag. Love the name of that, WordSwag. And quite by accident, I came across it again the other day. So I downloaded it again, and it's actually undergone quite a big makeover since the last time I used it, which was probably about 6 months ago. So they haven't tried to catch up with Canva by adding loads and loads and loads of different functionality. It's still genuinely just about putting words onto photographs, but they've just changed the interface, just made it a little bit more intuitive, and added extra fonts and the ability to put more than one block of text on a photograph. So that's effectively all it does, Pascal. You just upload the photograph, and then you can choose the text that you want to put in. But it's just so easy and so quick, and because it's on your phone, if you're out and about, you don't have to wait till you get home to go into Canva and do it on your computer, and you don't have to use your iPhone thumb and fingers to mess around with the Canva app. I would suggest, if words is what you want to do, use WordSwag. And then I discovered that since the last time that I used WordSwag, they've actually introduced another app, and this is my second choice, and this is called StorySwag. Now, StorySwag is more for people who like to post on Instagram stories or Snapchat or TikTok, and it allows you to actually animate the text that you put onto your photographs. And it's really quite, again, it's really simple, really intuitive. You can do it with a couple of clicks, and you can get the text coming in from the sides, coming up from the bottom, appearing, flashing, whatever you want it to do. And again, it just adds a little bit of life to the stories that you're posting on Instagram, Snapchat, wherever it is. So Word Swag and Story Swag. Now, Word Swag is completely free. You can use it as much as you want. You don't have to pay for it. Story Swag is free, but they have like a watermark in the bottom right corner, I think. And if you want to get rid of the watermark, then you've got to pay the fee. And it's only a couple of quid. So if this is really appealing to you, it's probably worth paying that couple of quid to get rid of the watermark.
Oh, that's smashing. Thank you very much. So once again, we don't talk to each other about this segment, and we keep surprising or on occasion have the meeting of minds, because I have had something very similar. So Roger, this week I want to continue my kind of foray into the world of Chrome extensions. Mm-hmm. And there was one that I rediscovered and one that I discovered for the first time. So the first one that I discovered for the first time is called, quite simply, Awesome Screenshot and Screen Recorder. So in case you're not sure, Roger, it's about screenshots and screen grabbing and screen recording. And the way you use that is just around this idea of writing blog articles where you want to be seen to be curating or quoting sources. And on occasion, people will actually take a screenshot of a web page or screenshot of a part of someone's maybe online presence. You can also now do it as a screen recording. This is free for now. Again, sometimes things do change. But what is really exciting with the screen shot, the screen grabbing, you can then within the interface crop and change the size and dimension to suit your blogging style, which I think is absolutely fantastic. And with the screen recording, there is some small element of editing as well. So you can actually create something that you can swiftly add to the blog article you're creating, crafting very swiftly using the Awesome Screenshot and Screen Recorder, which is a Chrome extension. So that was good fun. So this is one that I discovered by rediscovering the second one, which is essentially Giphy for Chrome. So Giphy will be known to pretty much everybody that is on the web and using the social media platform, because this is how you can obviously reply to friends and family and more by using a short animated clips from a famous film or sometime created by people who actually design those little animation. Now, the reason why you would want to have Giphy for Chrome is that it allows you to use GIFs as a reply within other things than social media, such as emails, documents and so on, but also it allows you to insert them into your blog articles. Now, depending on the sector you operate in, Roger, it may not be for you to always have a GIF animation and so on and so forth, but it is a good option. But the reason why I was keen to mention Giphy for Chrome is because in a way what you want to have as well, if it's bigger brother, which is essentially the version that allow you to make your own GIFs, which is essentially a web presence. So what you do is put Giphy on the Google search, you'll find the official website. And what you can do on Giphy is, of course, select the number of GIFs as you know them on social media, but you can create your own using your own images, your own video clips, and your own brand. So that becomes interesting now to start to maybe break down maybe a long article with some visuals that today have been static, and you can animate a series of titles. So for example, if you have a title that reads Part 3, Best Apps to Curate Content Online, what you can do using Canva or even Word Swag, I'd imagine a word story, is create three. One which has just the colors, one which has the word Part 3, and the one which has a sentence, Best Apps to for content curations, and then they get animated by Giphy itself, and then you can download that as an MP4 and have it on your website. The one thing that they introduced about 2 months ago now, it made the headlines for a bit and didn't quite make the cut in the news segment, Roger, is that you can use Giphy to create your own animated Zoom backgrounds. So for the right kind of delivery, for the right kind of online experience, you may want to have a background behind you that is slightly animated. Or you may want to actually have a series of and switch backgrounds depending on which key message you're sharing. But the other thing as well, Roger, that Zoom background is an MP4 file. I was thinking out loud, could this become also another way to swiftly edit a 10, 20-second kind of video clip by using Giphy, and then can you stitch them together to create, a longer form of content? So I just thought it would be an interesting one to add to one's toolkit.
Definitely going to have a look at that. I think I've heard of Giphy before, but I've never actually had a very close look, and I haven't ever created a GIF of my own, so I'm going to have a look at it.